What if everything you were taught about money was wrong? What if school prepared you to work for money, but never taught you how money works?
Robert Kiyosaki grew up with two fathers. One was highly educated, a school teacher with degrees, a stable salary, and the belief that education and a good job were the keys to success. The other had little formal schooling, but he understood how money worked. He built businesses, created assets, and eventually became one of the wealthiest men in their community. Two dads. Two mindsets. Two completely different futures. In just a few minutes, I'll walk you through the 6 very lessons Robert learned, lessons that shaped his life, and could completely transform yours. This is Rich Dad Poor Dad, explained through storytelling and illustrations. Robert grew up in Hawaii, in a comfortable but modest environment. He and his best friend Mike spent their childhood together, curious about how money worked. Robert's real father, his poor dad, was intelligent, respected, and always told him, "Go to school, get good grades, find a secure job with good benefits." That was his philosophy. But Mike's father, the rich dad, thought differently. His advice sounded strange to Robert at first. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them. Where poor dad believed in job security, rich dad believed in financial freedom. Where poor dad valued academic degrees, rich dad valued money skills. Where poor dad said, "I can't afford this," rich dad always asked, "How can I afford it?" These early contradictions shaped Robert's money education long before any school textbook ever could. When Robert was 9, he and Mike wanted to learn how to become rich, so they went to Mike's father, Rich Dad, and asked him directly, "Can you teach us how to make money?" Rich Dad agreed, but not in the way they expected. Instead, he offered them jobs in one of his small stores, paying them 10 cents an hour. It was boring, repetitive work, stacking cans, rearranging books. And the tiny pay frustrated Robert. After weeks of feeling underpaid and taken advantage of, Robert confronted Rich Dad. That's when the real lesson began. Rich Dad explained. Most people let their emotions control them, fear of being broke, and desire for comfort. These emotions push them into working jobs they don't like, just to pay bills. That's the rat race. He wanted to teach Robert not to be motivated by fear or desire, but by awareness. By understanding money rather than being controlled by it. And that lesson, mindset before money, became Robert's foundation. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them. Here's what he meant. Most people wake up, go to work, collect a paycheck, pay bills, and repeat the cycle until they're old. They depend on income from someone else. A boss, a company, a government. But the wealthy do something different. They create assets, systems and investments that produce money whether they are working or not. Rich Dad wanted Robert to learn that working for money isn't the problem. Staying stuck working for money forever, that's the problem. He taught Robert to step back, observe, and ask, where is money flowing? Who controls it? How can I position myself so the money flows toward me, not away from me? This was the beginning of learning to see opportunities instead of paychecks. Rich Dad's most famous teaching is also the simplest. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. That's it. But it's life-changing once you see how most people actually live. A house is not automatically an asset. A new car is not an asset. Most of the things people brag about owning are actually liabilities. Why? Because they take money out of your pocket through loans, maintenance, interest, and expenses. Rich Dad taught Robert to buy things that pay you, such as small businesses, rental properties, stocks or dividends, royalties, intellectual property. Any system that makes money after you create it. Meanwhile, poor dad taught him to get a job so he could buy a house, buy a car, get promoted, buy more things, and eventually retire. Two different paths. Two different destinies. Once Robert understood the difference between assets and liabilities, his entire view of money changed forever. Lesson 3. Mind your own business. One day Rich Dad said something that confused Robert. Mind your own business. But Robert was a kid. He didn't have a business. Then Rich Dad clarified. Even if you work a job, always build your own asset column on the side. He explained that most employees spend their lives building someone else's business, someone else's asset column. Your boss gets richer. Your company grows bigger, while you remain dependent on your paycheck. Rich Dad encouraged Robert to start something small, grow skills, explore opportunities and build assets before buying luxuries. He taught Robert to develop skills like communication, sales, leadership, and problem solving, skills schools rarely teach. By doing this, Robert started to build his business long before he had one. Lesson 4. Taxes and Corporations.
Here's a truth that frustrated poor dad and fascinated rich dad. Employees pay the most in taxes. The rich pay the least. Why? Because the rich understand the power of corporations.
Rich dad explained. Employees follow this flow: income, tax, and what's left goes to expenses. But business owners and corporations operate like this: income, expenses, and tax on what's left. It's a complete reversal. This means companies can legally spend money on travel, equipment, meals, and business development before paying taxes. Rich dad wasn't teaching Robert to avoid taxes. He was teaching him to understand the system so he could play the game strategically, not emotionally. Poor dad believed taxes were fair and simply part of life. Rich dad believed taxes were incentives created to reward certain behaviors, like investing, employing people, and taking risks. The rich read the rules. Everyone else plays blindly. Lesson 5. The rich invent money. As Robert grew older, Rich Dad introduced him to a more advanced lesson. Money isn't scarce. Opportunities are everywhere. The rich see them because they are prepared. Most people say, "I can't afford that. That's too risky. What if I lose money?" But opportunities aren't about luck, they're about prepared minds. The rich learn how to identify undervalued assets, negotiate deals, create systems, or start businesses that others don't notice. They create opportunities instead of waiting for them. Meanwhile, the average person is held back by fear. Fear of losing money, fear of failure, fear of uncertainty. Rich Dad taught Robert. Use your mind to create wealth. Money is just a tool. Lesson 6. Overcoming obstacles. Rich Dad outlined the 5 biggest obstacles stopping people from becoming rich. 1. Fear, especially fear of losing money. 2. Cynicism, doubt, negativity, excuses. 3. Laziness, busy doing the wrong things. 4. Bad habits, spending before saving. 5. Arrogance, thinking you know when you don't. Everyone faces these obstacles. What makes the wealthy different is not that they avoid them, but that they push through them. Rich Dad told Robert, "You become powerful the moment you stop letting fear control you, and start letting knowledge guide you." Robert grew up listening to 2 very different voices, 2 different philosophies, 2 different futures. From poor dad, he learned the value of education, hard work, and responsibility. From rich dad, he learned how money really works, how to create freedom, and how to think independently. And today, millions of readers have learned those same lessons. So here are your takeaways. Focus on assets, not liabilities. Build skills that make you valuable. Start a small business or side asset column. Learn how money works instead of just working for money. Overcome fear with knowledge, not avoidance. If you found this helpful, tell me what book you want me to break down next, and subscribe for more narrated stories with drawings. See you in the next video.